So your check engine light just came on and you're not sure what to do. There's many things that you could do. Number one, you can go obviously to a mechanic and have them diagnose it for you. Number two, you could go to your local auto parts store, whether that be an Autozone or a Advanced Auto Parts or I believe O'Reilly, but definitely the first two, and you can have them plug in the scan tool and be able to give you the code that your car has for the check engine light. Another thing you could do is you could spend about $20 to $50 and get one of those Bluetooth or Wi-Fi OBD2 scanners that connects with an app on your phone, and you can use that to at least attempt to diagnose the problem. Now, well, since this isn't a medical topic, I mean, I guess you could do whatever you want to do. I mean, if you have no kind of inclination to do the diagnostics or anything like that, then I mean, take it to a mechanic that you trust and have them diagnose it. Now, that is obviously the caveat is having a mechanic that you trust, which you may or may not be able to find. If you do, then that's great. If you don't, here's some things that we can do. So, what happened to me is I have a 99 Lexus ES300, and about a year ago, I replaced the air fuel ratio sensor for bank number 2, which on the particular engine is the rear bank. And if you actually go look, you'll see a video, I didn't edit it or anything, of me replacing the rear air fuel ratio sensor. It's in a very confined space, but I was able to eventually crank off the old one and put the new one in, and I didn't have really any problems until today. Now, on the same car, I just recently did a timing belt, water pump, replaced the bearings. I also rebuilt the power steering pump. I did a bunch of work on it, so I reset the codes by disconnecting the battery, letting the computer reset, and then plugging it back in. So, one of the things that you can tell when you're using one of these diagnostic scanners, and the app that I use is an app called Dash Command, and you can get it from the Google Play Store. Here's what it looks like. And you can download this app. Download it. Torque Pro is better, cheaper. So, some people don't like it, but I can tell you it does work, and I've been able to extract a lot of good diagnostic information from it. So now you may have these issues where your app doesn't work with your Bluetooth device. I don't have that issue. Um, the application does run. I think I tried Torque Pro and I like this one better. Now this person's trying to use the demo one, but I went to see and I purchased it and it works pretty well. So dash command, it shows you have your dashboards, you have gauges, your performance, your data grid, your diagnostics, and then you select which vehicle that you do. So there was a couple issues that I had where this came in really in handy, and one of them was when my VVTi solenoids went out. When the VVTi solenoids go out on an engine that has VVTi, it can be quite a scary situation because your engine will run very erratic. It'll feel like the engine's falling apart. And when you open up the hood after you've ran the engine like this, you may find that one of your exhaust manifolds in the cat is glowing red hot. The reason for that being is that the VVTi solenoids control the intake of each cam. They alter the intake of the angle. They either advance or retard the angle of the camshaft, and that is a very important part of making sure that there's a correct air fuel ratio air fuel ratio. We're going to get into the air fuel ratio sensors in a minute. So when those start to fail, and the way it started to fail is that there's a varnish that builds up on the metal surface, so it's not able to move as smoothly as it would like. And this is what happened to the VVTi solenoids that I had. They call it an oil control valve as well. And fortunately, now at the dealer, these parts run, it's like $100 and something. But I was able to find them on Amazon, and it was like $25 to $30 for a pair, and it's about a year later, and I haven't had any more issues. So, getting back to, so that's one place where the diagnostics has come very in handy. Also, with the air fuel ratio sensor, this is a car that I've had for a while, and I've known that it's had this code, but it wasn't until I had the app that I was actually able to see the fault in progress. And what it shows up as is that you're able to see the voltage that the air fuel ratio sensors are giving off, and I was able to see that on one sensor the voltage would fluctuate every, it's really fluctuating every millisecond, but this app shows you in probably a couple second intervals how it's switching, and it rounds to the nearest 10 thousandths of a voltage, or because it's tenths, hundredths, or thousandths of a voltage. It rounds it by 5. So the its natural state is to be at 0.660 volts, and then it fluctuates probably, you know anywhere in between there. But what the app shows you is that if it gets down close enough to 0.655 or 0.665, it'll show you that instead of the fluctuating gradient in between. So using this app, I was able to see that one of them was just showing a constant voltage. It was never changing, so it was obviously defective, whereas the other one was changing up and down. So I replaced this sensor with a Denso. It's part number 234900997. And if we see, it's the same sensor. One just has a longer wire because of how it fits. So if we look for the Denso 2349007, we'll see this one, and it says that it's the upstream rear, and this is what it looks like. And we see it's $194 essentially. So this is an expensive part. Just the part itself runs for $194, and so it's one that you really want to make sure that it is defective before you go out and replace it, especially on an old car, from 1999. So I verified that it was defective, or this specific one was defective, and I replaced it, and I haven't had any problems since. Today comes around, and like I said, just recently I did the timing belt job. I reset all the codes, and in this app you can see that what the engine does is, or what the computer does is, it goes through and it has a bunch of modules that it does the oxygen. It has 2 oxygen sensor. It has one for the heating, and then one just for the oxygen sensor, and then it has one for the catalyst, one for the evap system, and a couple other systems that it goes through. And it has seven total systems that it goes through, and it does a series of checks, and once it completes whatever it does, it then completes those checks, and then you should be good to go. So another error code that appears on this car, which I haven't gotten around to fixing yet, is the P0446 code. Now, if we open up, I actually have the full service manual for this car. And the full service manual, you can actually go in and look up these codes. So if we look up P0446, and okay, it has to find it. So P0446, it gets to one where it's very in depth, where it talks about diagnostics in the engine, and then it shows you this whole thing that the evap system does. And there's a vacuum switching valve for the evap, a vacuum switching valve for the pressure switching valve, a vacuum switching valve for the CCV. I forget which one the CCV is. And so this is based on how I can read this graph. This is when the car starts. So this is the car starting, and this is it getting up to temperature, and pressure is building. Then whereas the VSV for evap, it starts closed, and then somewhere along the pressure build, it opens, and these remain closed. This one remains open, and then once it gets to the maximum pressure, it opens the VSV for pressure switching valve, and then it closes this valve, and the pressure is released. And then at some point, once it reaches the lowest pressure, it then closes the valve, and then the pressure starts building again, and it's doing a tank and canister leak check. And if it has a leak, it throws a P0440 or P0442. And these, when they reach a certain pressure, then it's going to close this valve, open this other valve, and then the P0446, if the pressure doesn't change, it looks like it'll, or if it's within this range, somewhere around here, if it's reading that it's not the ideal pressure, then it's going to throw a P0446. And the P0446 code could be any number of things. So let's go see, because then there's one where it shows exactly where it is, or it shows. So P0446. So P0446, when the vapor pressure rises to a specified point, the ECM opens the vacuum switching valve for the CCV. Pressure will increase rapidly because of the air allowed into the system. No increase or an increase below specified rate of pressure indicates a restriction on the air inlet side. The electronic control module closes the VSV for pressure switching valve. The pressure rise is no longer as great. If there was no change in pressure, the ECM will conclude the vacuum switching valve for pressure switching valve did not close. So the VSV for pressure switching valve. So, but it could be any number of these things. It could be that the vacuum hoses have cracks, holes, blocked, damaged, or disconnected in in any of these. So we see somewhere there's a figure that shows you kind of a diagram of all the hoses. Fuel tank cap incorrectly installed, fuel tank cap cracked or damaged. So I replaced the fuel tank cap. It wasn't that. I've replaced a lot of the hoses, but maybe not all of them. So maybe one of these hoses will do it. An open or a short in the vapor pressure sensor circuit, maybe it's that. The vapor pressure sensor, maybe it's that. Open or short in this is what I want to check. I want to check and see the actual live reading of the vapor pressure sensor, because I've seen before where they do a diagnostic and they find that the vapor pressure sensor is giving off just the same reading the whole time, meaning that it's not really giving you an accurate reading. So that's something. But before I replace that, because that, like the air fuel ratio sensor, is a pretty expensive sensor, so then maybe there's an open or short in the VSV circuit. VSV for evap, open or short. So it could be, now I've replaced a lot of these vacuum switching valves. I think I've replaced all of them, but maybe I missed one. So I'm thinking it's either the sensor. I hope it's not the fuel tank is cracked. I hope it's not the charcoal canister, but it could be. Maybe the fuel, so it could be any of these things. So it's a bunch of things that could check, and really it doesn't affect the performance. It may let out a little more emissions or whatever it may be, but fortunately I live in a non-emission state, or that in Florida they don't check for the emissions, so I'm okay to drive the car for now. I've tried changing a lot of these different things, but I think before I change anything else, I would want to go do a proper diagnostics. I know we could do a smoke test, a smoke leak test, and see if smoke comes out somewhere. And I want to see if it's this vapor pressure sensor. So there's a couple things I want to check before I do that. But so today, I got a P1135 code. And a P1135 is the AF sensor heater circuit. So it's the heater circuit malfunction. And I got a P115. And I got these at the same time. So what these are saying is that the AF sensor heater circuit for both sensors was malfunctioning at the same time. Now this is strange. Now bank 2 sensor 1 or bank 1 sensor 1 is the one I replaced. I believe I replaced bank 1 sensor 1, and the 1MZ, it's hard to know which one is bank 1. Let's see. Is there a bank? Is there a bank 1? Bank 1. Is there a place that shows? Oh, okay, here's bank 1. So here it shows bank 1 sensor 1 is what I replaced. So bank 2 sensor 1, this is in the front of, so based on this diagram, oh no, it's the other way, right? This is confusing to read. Which is the front of the vehicle? See, in this diagram, it's hard to know which is the front of the vehicle. You would think that this is the front of the vehicle, so that this is bank 2 and this is bank 1, but it's hard to tell. But either way, it was showing it for both of the sensors. I think this is the front, because that's more closely how that's where the cat is right after it, right here, for bank 1. Warm up 3-way catalytic converter. Yeah, so that's bank 1. Bank 1. That's the rear bank. Bank 1 is the rear bank. Bank 1 sensor 2. Bank 1 sensor 2. So I believe that the bank closest to the firewall is bank 1. Could we see here? Bank 1 sensor 1 is definitely this sensor, and then bank 2 sensor 1 is this one in the front. So I replaced this one, the bank 1 sensor 1. But what it's saying is that there's a heater circuit malfunction in both banks, and that wouldn't make sense for both banks to go at the same time, especially when one is less than a year old, or just over a year old actually, and then another one, if anyone were to go, it would be the bank 2 sensor 1. So let's go back to the P1135, and it says that for any of these, the heater circuit in which an abnormality is detected is turned off. Open or short in the AF sensor heater, or the ECM. So my conclusion was that the first thing I was going to do was just reset the codes, reset the computer again, and maybe that would get rid of the issue. Now, what was peculiar is that while I was riding the car, or I then put the diagnostic tool, the voltage wasn't really changing. It was maybe blipping down and then coming back, but it wasn't really changing how I'd expect it to change if everything was working normally. But then what I did was reset the codes, or reset the computer, disconnect the battery for a few minutes and plug it back in. And then I went and did this. And this is where some little diagnostic trickery, well, not trickery, but some diagnostic techniques that you could use to diagnose this problem. So again, get an app like this. Hopefully it works with your phone. If not, maybe another app will work. This is just happens to be the app that I use. It works well enough for my needs. And then get one of the OBD2 adapters. I don't have any special one. I think it's one of the OBD. Let me see if I see it. 2 Wi-Fi connector. I think it's this one. OBD2 scanner. I believe it's this one, or it's something very similar to this. It has the little lights on it, and it's 25 bucks, and it works. It does exactly what I need it to do. There's a bunch of these, but around that price range, I found that you can actually get, I don't know if it's this Cobra one, but it looks very similar to this. So with that and this app, I was able to produce this graph. So what you do is you run it, and then there's at least in the dash command app, I don't know if it shows it in any of these views, but there's a way that you can select one of the buttons to start recording the data. And then what it does is it's going to record the data, and then you can export the data in a spreadsheet and then be able to pull it into here. So that's exactly what I did, and I did maybe a little couple mile test drive, and I was able to see then the recorded data of the voltages. And we can see here as I quickly go down how the voltage change from all different ranges. But one of the good things to see is then, over a period of time, how the voltage has changed. So what we see here, the blue is that bank 2 sensor 1. So if we go back, so we go bank 1. So bank 1, just so we confirm it again. So this is the full service manual. Let's go back to that one that showed the banks very clearly, which one was which. Okay, almost there, almost there. This one. So bank 1 sensor 1 is the one in the back. So bank 1, so this is bank 1 sensor 1. So that's what's in red. So that's the one in the back, and this is the newer sensor. So bank 1 sensor 1 is the newer sensor. If we go back, we can even see where I purchased it, order history. Oh, we'll sign back into my account. And if we go back, load more. These are all different purchases I've done for this car. We see right here, $142. And it really was $182, but I used a coupon code, which I don't think is available anymore. Advanced Auto Parts are not really doing the 25% off, but I was able to save $50 and get it for $142. So, and I replaced that sensor. So that's the new sensor in red. The old sensor, now I don't know if it's original. I seem to think that it's original, but it may not be. Somebody may have replaced this before, but I don't think anyone has, is in blue. And we see both, and then in yellow is the engine RPM. So I made two charts, one doing the AF voltage versus the RPM, because as the RPM changes, there should be changes in the air-fuel ratio, and then also by the speed. So we see here we have the voltages and the speed of the vehicle. Now I may actually switch these around because it gives me a little better reading. So if I do the vertical axis or the series, we'll put these over on the left axis. We'll put these two over on the left axis, and then we'll put the vehicle speed over on the right axis. And then we will edit the vertical axis, and we'll do a minimum value of 0.544, and we'll do a top line of 0.9. So now we can see, so we have the voltage all the way from 0.54 to 0.9, and we see it fluctuating with the engine and the performance. So we see here there's very little fluctuations at where I'm at a dead stop here, and then once I start moving, it starts fluctuating, and as the car starts getting moving more and more, we see that fluctuations start increasing, and then when I come back to a stop here, they start dwindling down, and then that's the end of our data. So we see very clearly here that the sensor is working just fine. So whatever tripped the code was not the sensor. Now we're going to see if that code comes back. Hopefully it doesn't, because if it does, I don't know what could be causing it. We'll have to go into some deeper diagnostics. But let's just say, for example, how I want to finish off this video is if you did all this diagnostics and you realize that it is the sensor, what is a good way to go about shopping for these sensors? Because I see that since it is expensive, any way to save a little bit of money will be useful. So we see here from Advanced Auto Parts, they have the front sensor, the bank. So the 9007, this is the one. This is the rear sensor. So this is this bank 1 sensor 1. They have this going for right now $193.99, and I think that's the same one. So we see the price has even gone up from when I purchased it. It used to be $182, now it's $194. And then if we go Denso and it's 2349009, we see that one goes for $206.99. And this is the Bank 2 sensor one, which we see needs a little longer. Oh man, come back. Oh man. Oh man. Oh man. How did I lose that page? Oh, Christ. I don't know how I lost this page, folks. I thought I was right behind it. I don't know how. Okay, I know we're getting closer. Closer. So what page is this? So the page is 1120. So just in case I lose this again. So let's put this zoom to page level. So we see bank 2 sensor 1 is this one in the front. It has a longer cord here. So there's a couple good things, good rules of thumb. Definitely you want to go look for it through the dealership. And just as a price, maybe it's cheaper at the dealership, but there's something peculiar about the sensor, and I know because I've actually purchased it. So when you go to parts.lexus.com, you'll then put in your vehicle, the ES300, the 99. It's an electrical part, so it's in the electrical system, and then it's in this switch and relay and computer for whatever reason. And then we get down to this diagram here and we see it clearly showing the all the different sensors. So we have, it has the water temperature sensor, it has the NOx sensors, we have this sensor, we have the rear, the bank 1 sensor, and then the bank 2 sensor, and then we have the oxygen sensor. But when we go to it, what we're going to see, so if we go and let's say I needed to replace the front one, it's going to take me down here and I'm going to get this part number right here. So this part number, but what we see is now from the diagram, we see, now let's blow this up again, that there's already a clear difference because these diagrams are very, very precise. And the spacing of the holes, there's just 2 holes, and I think there's maybe 4 of them all the way around. But we see in the image that we see here that there's a bunch of holes and there's maybe a set of 8 of them all the way around. We could see 4. There's no reason to believe there's not another set of 4. So I actually ordered one of these and I saw that this was the case and I saw that it wasn't matching what was supposed to be, so I returned it and I ended up buying the Denso one because there's something that you could do. So what I did was I found this. I'm like, oh, okay, 163. Now, a clear way that you can save money is going to your local Toyota dealership. So when you find your Lexus part number, what you always want to do if you want to save some money is then go take that part number to the Toyota dealership, because Toyota won't have the diagrams of your Lexus, but if it's the same part number, the same part number is the same part number. And we see from the Lexus dealership, which is 162.99 or 163, the same part is 112.11. So that's a big savings right there. But this is not the right part. So what I had to go find out is, well, what is the right part? Now this is fortunately where Rock Auto comes in. Now Rock Auto, we see here the Denso 2349009. So we're ignoring all these other ones. We want to, because Denso is the OEM manufacturer. We see they're selling it for $129.79 without any coupons or any extra discount. That's just what they're selling it for. So if we go to the info, we see this is going to be and we see the image is of the right one. See, that's the hole pattern that it's supposed to have. A couple holes there, 4 holes all the way around, and that's what it's supposed to be. Then what we have is we know it's the right one and it's a lot cheaper. So even with shipping, so if we go over and I did shipping to my zip code and we calculate the shipping, we see that for $6, so for $135, all said and done, maybe they add taxes to it, I don't know, but $135 all said and done, I can have the part, whereas from Advance Auto, it's $206 and it's the exact same part. So Rock Auto, now maybe you could find it cheaper, but this is the cheapest that I've been able to find this. Let's check Amazon. Let's go to Amazon.com and we'll put in Denso 2349009, and not this one, not any of these off brands. They have it for a pretty close price as well. 90. I don't know why they have 2 of them. So what's the difference? So this is from Denso. Now is this being sold by Amazon? See, this is where parts anytime. Hopefully that's the right one. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. So, but Amazon has it for around the same price. And hopefully that's the right one and someone's not pulling a fast one. But Rock Auto seems to be a pretty reputable seller and they're selling it for that 129, with shipping. And Amazon, even if you don't have Prime, when you're buying something that's that expensive, you should be able to get free shipping on it anyways. So, either way, that's around the going rate. That's a good way to save some money. You just want to make, and while still getting the correct part. And now finally, I just want to go into, so this being the wrong one, how do we find the right one? Now, unfortunately, it's kind of difficult to find the right one, but Rock Auto, even if you weren't going to buy it from Rock Auto, what they do have is that they have the alternate OEM part numbers a lot of the time. So you could take this part number and we can go into the Toyota dealership and see what they have it for. And you see here, now this actually looks like the right one, the right hole pattern and everything, but this one is going for 192.53. So it's the same part because Denso actually makes it, but we see, do you want to pay 192? Do you want to pay 206? Or do you want to pay 129 or even 133? So 133.13, that should be everything all out the door. Maybe they add taxes to it, but between Rock Auto and Amazon, you could definitely get a significant savings. It's still an expensive part, but it's a good $70 less or so from what the dealership and your local auto parts store is selling it for. And let's just check AutoZone, and we'll do the same thing. Since we know the part number, we'll put in Denso 2349009 and 188.99. So it's less than Advance Auto, which is good, but still a lot more than Amazon or Rock Auto. Let's try O'Reilly Auto Parts. We'll do the same thing. So O'Reilly Auto Parts. We'll do Denso 2349009. Air fuel ratio sensor, and they are doing it. Do they have it? Oh, they're not. Okay. Let's see. All right. Set as the store. Sure. Just give me a price. Why aren't you telling me the price? $192.99. So by far, Amazon or Rock Auto are giving you the best price. Now you obviously have to wait for it to ship. And if you can, I mean, if you need it like tomorrow, then you're going to pay a $70 premium. But apparently, you could pay for the shipping, but that's going to put you around the same price. So if you need it by like tomorrow or early AM, you could do, oh, but you could do FedEx Express by the end of the day, and it would still be less. So 145, and you would get it. Today is Wednesday, so you'd get it Friday. So by the postal service, you would have to wait longer, but even with the expedited shipping, or you do it from Amazon, it looks like it would deliver next week sometime. So you have options. Fortunately, this is a problem where the car will still run, so you can order the part and still drive the car until